So, this slide brings us to one of the most enthralling ways of knowing, which was very famous in antiquity. This way of acquiring knowledge was founded by Greek philosopher Aristotle in antiquity. And this important way of knowledge is called logic. Logic can be defined as an ideal way of thinking towards acquiring knowledge. As far as logic is concerned, it's divided into two branches: inductive reasoning or inductive logic, and deductive reasoning or deductive logic. In inductive reasoning or inductive logic, we provide a conclusion or a conclusive statement, which is also called major premise in its terminological sense. So we move from our conclusive statement towards our exemplary facts. Or in other words, we move from the major premise to the minor premise. Or in other words, we provide a conclusion and then we go for examples which proves that conclusion. For example, if I state that I have a major premise or a conclusion or a reasoning or a statement that Imran Khan is a good prime minister. So for that, I have to look for examples. For example, one minor premise could be he is educated at Oxford, and the second minor premise could be that he is a philanthropist. So, inductive reasoning is the way of logic where we move from a specific statement to the general statements or premises. Now, there are certain limitations to our inductive reasoning or this way of knowing. The first is that uh, for a certain conclusion, we cannot observe all examples. Like the example of Imran Khan, when I say that he is a good prime minister, I might come up with the minor premise or the general statements that he has been educated at Oxford and he is a philanthropist, but I cannot come up with all the examples or all the statements which are associated with Imran Khan being a good prime minister. And the second thing is that for a specific statement, when we go to the general statements, these general statements might vary from one group of people to another group of people. For example, if I say that Imran Khan is a good prime minister, and even I come up with the general statements that he is educated at Oxford and he is a philanthropist, this conception of Imran Khan being a good prime minister will vary from one group of individual to another group of individuals is concerned. And then we have another way of knowing, that is a type of logic, that is deductive reasoning, when we have certain statements and on the basis of that particular statement or minor premises we come to a major premise. When we began with a premise, uh, this premise would always be true, and if a premise is true, then we can arrive at a true conclusions, but it is not always the case. And the second thing is that logic, and especially deductive reasoning, it can help us about what has already been known to us. does not tell us about things that we can know or that needs investigation for understanding. With all these ways of knowing in mind, we finally come to the scientific method. Now, the first thing is the primary objective of the scientific method is to explain, predict, and control phenomena. A phenomena can be an observable event. So, what we do, what is the objective here? The objective is explanation, prediction, and controlling a phenomena. And this whole process involves not only acquiring knowledge but also developing and testing a theory. And the use of scientific method, it is more efficient, it is more reliable than any other source of knowledge. So when we look at the scientific method, we come across 5 steps in the scientific method. That is the first, the recognition, the identification of a problem, then the formulation of a hypothesis or hypotheses, the collection of data, analysis of data, and then stating conclusions. So, after reading all this, we come to our definition of research, that is the application of scientific method to study literary and linguistic problems. And the goal of this research is to predict, explain, and control a literary and linguistic phenomena.